So, we welcome Michael Connelly, who's going to do the Q&A today. We're going to do some questions. He's going to do an interview, and then we'll do some audience Q&A after that. And Mr. Elliott Gould. It's 3:57, so.
Oh, great. We have an hour.
Great.
I'm not sarcastic. It means so much to me. I was telling this gentleman that it's like I remember it like it was earlier today.
Well, I get that leads to kind of the first question I wanted to ask. I don't know how often you watch your work. I happen to watch this film probably once a year for the last 30 years. It's a few years ago, someone was writing a book, and they interviewed me, and the book was "What Movie Changed Your Life?" And this is the movie I talked about because I saw it when I was 19. The next day, I went and bought the book. I brought it with me. Actually, I still have it. That's you on the cover with the cat, and the confluence of seeing the movie and reading the book put me on the path that I'm on, and I go back to the movie a lot to be re-inspired. And call me biased, but I just think the movie is great, and I think it holds up. There's moments in it, there's meanings in it that are totally legit today, much like the book it's based on, although quite different from the book. And so, give us your take on seeing your work and what you think of it.
Well, the film I did before this was called The Touch, and it was the first one of us Americans to work with and for Ingmar Bergman. And when I got back to America after that, I was doing my own film, and I thought I was in charge, and I was wrong. I didn't know I had no perspective, and I didn't know I had no judgment. And it got to a point where I had to give up a great part of my career to learn what this movie is all about, which is human nature. And so it was about a year or a year and a half, and I was completely out of work, couldn't find a job, was unemployable, although I had broken through and had been on the cover of Time and all of that. And I went to see my friend David Picker, who was running United Artists, and he gave me Lee Brackett's script of The Long Goodbye, and there was another director who they thought was going to do it. And I read it, and it was written back in time. It was like a pastiche. It sounds like a nut to me, but I know it means something, like it's a style or something. And so I thought, you know, that's a job, and I grew up with Bogart movies, and I saw most, if not all, of the guys who played the part before me, as well as after me. And then I was told that the director who they thought was going to do the picture thought I was too new and wouldn't cast me. And then Robert Altman had the project. And he called me from Ireland, where he was finishing the picture he did before this called Images. And he said to me, "What do you think?" And I said, I could get emotional with us, because Altman means everything to me. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I've always wanted to play this guy." And Altman said, "You are this guy." And that was the beginning of the process.
And you had already worked with him on MASH, so you had a...
Well, everybody's got to have a failure every now and then.
Well,
And also he'd asked me to do McCabe and Mrs. Miller. And I decided that I had to do I Love My Wife, so I couldn't do McCabe and Mrs. Miller. And Bob said to me, "You're making the mistake of your life." And I said about McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and I said, "Well, it's not my life yet, and you can't take away that I was your first choice. And someday I'll take a look at your picture and see it as the masterpiece that it's going to be and that it is, and know that you wanted to cast me." And then came The Long Goodbye.
So when you said that you read the script, I think I read that script where it was set in the time that the novel was set. When Altman called you, or when you started, when did it move to contemporary? And when did you think in terms of significantly, I think, changing the way the characters
All
proceed?
the thoughts in the piece, some of the words, some of the lines, and Altman gave me not only gave me room, he told me later on that sometimes I scared him, because I actually almost drowned in that scene. But Altman, when he called me and he started to work on it, the very first scene with the cat is the theme of the picture, and Altman told me that over the phone, about you can't lie to a cat, and that when they tried to change the food and went out to do that, you cannot fool a cat. Also the line, why don't you be like one of the, where they're killing tigers in India, that was Bob's line, and I thought it was a little corny in the rhythm of it, but Bob Altman could tell me anything to do, and I would do it. As a matter of fact, with the 4-note harmonica, I had found it while we were in production, and I went in to see him, and I said, and at the end of the picture, after he's pulled the trigger, and he's walking up the road, he takes out this 4-note harmonica, and Bob said, and he plays the Long Goodbye. And I said, no, he plays an uninhibited child's tune, or you can't have my instrument. And of course, that's the way it was. And as I said, just about every moment, I've seen all your pictures too. Not I've seen, I seen. He allowed me to, and also Lee Brackett blessed it after we saw the first screening at Grauman's Chinese. And just like even that's very flattering, but that's not what we were talking about. It is not a conventional picture of this classic character, and yet it's so human.
Well, imagine my surprise when I saw the movie and I loved it. I went out and got this book. You're on the cover with a cat on your shoulder, and there's no cat in the book. I love that opening of the movie, and as you say, that encapsulates what the movie's about. So how did that all come about? I mean, did Altman just have that?
Well,
that wasn't in the script that I read.
Altman said to me, no, with Lee Brackett's script, and also in the book, Terry Lennox comes back at the end to visit Philip Marlowe. He's in the book. Terry Lennox isn't killed. In the picture, it's the first time the character pulls the trigger. Again, when I saw it, because I had been somewhat influenced by the work of Akira Kurosawa and his amazing stuff, that I spit at the end after I pulled the trigger, and I thought, I almost bought it today. I almost thought, okay, but you don't have to, because Terry Lennox is such a despicable character, and most of the characters, except the girls, and the cats, except the nature of it, are sort of okay, but Raymond Chandler was a cat person. He had cats, and as I was telling you when we were talking earlier in the day, that Robert Altman said, read Chandler on Chandler and read The Long Goodbye. That's all the preparation I would want you to do, is just to see what we're starting with. So the cat, that was totally Robert Altman and Raymond Chandler, even though it's not in the book.
He said that he wanted you to read the book, the novel, and Chandler on Chandler, and that's all the prep work. But you had seen both our movies and so forth. This character that you played is a major icon of both literature and film. And what was that like? I mean, were you guys just going to wing it? I mean, was there a fear factor, the challenge of?
Well, understand, when I said, I mean, I didn't bring Bergman up to show off or anything. And when I was out of work and showed Bob The Touch, which when I first read it, I thought it was either about a guy who could play cards or a guy who could shoot a basketball. I don't know why I would think of Larry Bird, but this was pre-Larry Bird. I was a basketball player, Indiana State, NCAA, and the Boston Celtics. He could really shoot. And so, you know, I am very respectful. The thing that Bob gave me and allowed me to, and Paul Mazursky had a little bit, had some input in as far as my work and being free. In the scene where Marlowe is being fingerprinted and then being roughed up by the police in the little booth with a two-way mirror, I still had that ink on my hands. And when we were, I hope you don't mind that this takes me into things that are relevant to the work, that I was working with Steven Soderbergh, who walked up to me at 1:20 in the morning when we were about to do the scene where George Clooney tells everybody what Ocean's 11 is about. And I don't like to be tired. I'm not tired right now, but I mean, it was about 1:20 and we had the scene to do, so what I had in my mind was, what do I have to say? And I had a little scene with Matt Damon, and I'm ready to shoot. 1:20 in the morning, everybody from the gang was right there. And Stephen walked up to me and said, the ink on the face, was that an improvisation? And I thought, I know, you know what you're talking about, but I don't know what you mean, because I'm here to do something else. And then, oh, because I still have a brain, but it's got to get stimulated, you know. And I thought, oh, Stephen and I said at the same time, the long goodbye. And I said, yeah. I said, well, yeah, it was an improvisation. Was that behavior okay for you as a viewer? He said, yeah, but it was so unpredictable. And what it showed me was that for me, in the booth, working for Bob giving me the room to help to invent and create this new version of this classic character, and once I committed to putting the ink under my eyes because of the big game on Saturday, which is so non sequitur, I like that anyway, you know, and then to go into Al Jolson. I mean, movies are about time management in relation to resources. If Bob didn't trust me completely, if I didn't have confidence in what I was doing, because there was no rehearsal for that, if I had stopped, if there was any question, it would have cost us 20 to 25 or more minutes of production time, and that's what movies are about business-wise. And of course, the business dominates almost everything that we do. So Altman choosing me to play this part, committing to it with me to play this part, and allowing me to just, you know, sing and dance up the road. I'm an idealist, and Altman was my muse, and I miss him a lot.
When I watch this movie, I get a sense that the Marlowe of the 40s of the books has been put in a time machine and brought to the 70s. You know, he's got the old car, gets out of an elevator, you gotta pull the door open and so forth. He's, in mannerisms, he's kind of straight-laced. He wears the tie. He insists on wearing the tie when you go out to get cat food. And how was that part of the plan, or was
Well,
it just
no, that's
kind of
great, because that tie is a very special tie. Once we started to work on it, is that Bob asked me if I would do the screen test for and with Nina Van Pallant. And I and some other, I mean, I don't talk with many people, I have a few friends here, but, you know, thought, well, I wouldn't think of Nina Van Pallant. I mean, she had been involved in some scandal with Clifford Irving. She was a cabaret singer. I didn't ever see her act. She wasn't American. But if the old man thought of her and wanted to see her, I would do what I had to do. So I was able to choose my wardrobe. A mismatched pair of pants, blue pants, and the blue blazer, plain white shirt, the tie, and I used the tie in it, is got tiny American flags on it. And when I'm going into the water, and we waited for high tide, we shot that, we had to wait for a while for the high tide, that was real. And as I said, I almost drowned, and there was no one out there. I mean, it looked like someone was out there, but I went because I loved Sterling. His performance is amazing. Sterling Hayden. But that tie with a little American flex, and you never see that, but that was my message for myself, for us, for anyone that could get here. Because as I told the great Alfred Hitchcock, to me, the American is that which has evolved from everyone else, as in the infant of the rest of the world. And Mr. Hitchcock said, I accept. And that probably answers, as a writer and as a craftsman yourself, answers some of your questions as to meaning, and there being more meaning in life than any of us will ever know.
Going off of that transportation of this character, I guess it's 2 decades forward, 2.5 decades forward to the 70s. The written Marlowe is very, and you know, Chandler and many of the essays he wrote are very much about this private detective's code, and you guys played with it a lot, and it almost seems like he has no code, and then he has a big code. You know,
conscience. I mean, Bob said to me, "You're the problem in the picture. Nobody else has a conscience. Everybody is doing what comes natural, and you are the one who, you know, who makes the story because you're conscious and you have a conscience. And who else in the picture has a conscience? I believe in law and order. I believe in administrative organization. Whether I like government or not, we need government. And you have an old samurai, you have somebody with a value system that is really so precious. It's so, it's very, you know, this is what Chandler wrote. When you say the 70s, it's the present. It's now. That picture was now. Whether it's the 70s, and I'm in the 70s now in life, or whether it's the 80s or whenever, no matter what our age. I also I said to my 12-year-old grandson today, whose paternal grandfather just passed away, we talked about it on the phone. You know, I said, you know, I look at things philosophically. Do you know where the word and the concept came from to Henry? And he said, I think it was Chinese, which was great. I said, no, it's Greek, and it means for the love of knowledge, you know.
Well, on this film, I mean, you got to tell us, but it appears there wasn't a strict framework, so that you were free to be this character and take it in the directions you want. But did you know from the beginning that you were heading towards that moment where Marlowe would shoot Terry Lennox? Or was that something that you guys came down the road and said?
The very first day that we shot, it was a scene that no longer is in the picture. And we went out to a studio on Radford, CBS studio, because it looked like a big office building, a corporate concern, where what the profession turned into corporate life. And I remember in life, Steve McQueen came to visit me that day. He was going to go jump into snow someplace, and we talked a little bit. And that's the first time I said, it's okay with me. Because I think Sam Spade had an office in the same building. And my character, who, as you see, is sleeping in the very beginning, and Hooray for Hollywood, and what that means, I once spoke after seeing this picture in Connecticut years and years and years ago at a place, a school, for the benefit of continuing education at a school in Connecticut. And they cut off the last Hooray for Hollywood. And I thought, I mean, I'm not working with a script. I have some knowledge. I have experience. I'm living this as we speak. And so I thought that was a good beginning. Is there anyone here who would not say Hooray for Hollywood? And the audience generally was saying, what are you talking about? What do you mean? You know that, you've experienced that a little bit with me right now. And so I said, well, but I'm not talking about Hollywood as a place, I'm talking about our imagination. And we're working in an industry that sometimes imagination is dangerous to the status of the business. And now how do we do it? Some of us have to make an example of ourselves. Some of us have to get through. And Robert Altman, and I were able to get through with this, and it's always going on. I would look at what we just now did, and say, well, people criticize me for being this way, but I do believe that there's nothing of value other than what we have to share. And it's one thing to share goodness and accomplishment, it's another thing to share a problem. And this picture is about problems, it's about a problem. Problems on so many different levels. And how do we entertain? How do we validate the few $1 million? And it was between 2 and 3, if so, that we had to spend on this because we all want to continue to work. This is the only way I know how to make a living. And so I believe that, there's no, so long as we can communicate directly like this, like I'm doing or trying to do, we could see that no one of us can have a problem that one of us didn't have before. And one of the things I've said, and then I'll shut up for a moment, is, or as long as you want me to, that I made a great many films. Some are better and some aren't. But I could look at anyone, if not everyone, and find a reason for participating because I've lived through all of this and I'm still working. And that's the idea, to continue to work.
Do you know if anyone's ever counted how many times you say it's okay with me in the movie?
No, but I told you about the first time I said it because it wasn't in the script.
So
have you counted it?
No, I haven't.
What about
I
the
will next
cigarette?
time I see it.
I don't smoke, and then someone said, but you never inhaled. They said, what's about, you don't have to inhale a cigarette, it's something to suck on. I don't bite my nails anymore. It's an activity. And that's all I did in the picture, generally, was to keep continuity with the cigarette.
It's okay with me. It's said at least a dozen times, maybe more.
Oh, no,
And,
yeah.
and it all adds, every time it says it amps up the shock value of the end of the movie. It turns out it is not okay with you.
Oh, great, yeah.
And so that's, so when you answered that long one before, you didn't really answer my question, which is, was it in the idea on day one of shooting that Marlowe's gonna kill this guy at the end for the betrayal?
I would have to look at that script. I don't have the shooting script. I know that with Bob and how again, you may say that I'm not answering your question. It's not black and white here. Is that he said to me, the story is always the same. And I've said that Bob Altman, what he does is shows life taking its course. So I would think so, but the entire process, and we shot out of sequence, we don't shoot in sequence, was, to live this, to be consistent to the spine and the core of the character, as well as the history of the character, but by bringing it into the present, it opens up so many things. I had felt there were some holes in the script, and even my fairy godmother brought back $350,000 there at the end. I think that we looped that because things weren't clear. Some things became clearer to me since now I know what's going on, I know what's coming next. And I also don't want to get swept away by being in love with it or loving it too much. I want to understand because I always want us to work to be better.
I think it holds together plot-wise better than most of Chandler's books. I mean, I never had a question mark come up from the movie, watching the movie. I think it, maybe through the looping or whatever, it worked.
No, Bob Altman was this brilliant, inventive, creative genius. Bob Altman, my friend.
So how was the movie received when it first came out? You said you saw it at Grauman's?
No, I didn't. Oh yeah, I saw it at Grauman's. They had a screening because it was opening at Grauman's. And as I said, I'd been out of work for a while, and I couldn't get myself arrested in this town. And we saw they screened it just for Lee Brackett, one or two people. There was hardly anyone there. And I watched it, which may have been the first time. And I know I said to Lee Brackett, who had collaborated with William Faulkner on the script for the original The Big Sleep. And I said, is this okay for you? We've really stretched it and gone beyond and changed some things. Does it validate your work? Is it okay? Is it acceptable to you and your ethic as to what screenwriting seems to be about, or what? And she said yes. And she said it was more than she had even thought, because it's not so typical. There are areas that are different in it.
How about outside of the screening room? How did
Charles Chaplin, I remember I was doing a picture here, and we didn't do very well. Charles Chaplin nearly single-handedly blew us away, and I didn't know why we didn't open in New York. And it seemed to me that the way the picture was being sold was nowhere near the kaleidoscope that Altman created for it. And then the picture was taken down, and then they reopened it in New York with a Mad Magazine kind of thing, which I thought was as extreme as the one that was the original one, which was flattering and romantic and all of that. And I think someplace in the middle, which is, do you know what's going on? I mean, one of the contemporary pictures that I admire very much is a tailor, soldier, spy, tinker, tailor, soldier, spy. And I was watching it with a friend who said she just couldn't watch it, you couldn't get into it. I said, but this is a picture from another time. And it's a picture where no one knows what's going on. And if you stay with it, eventually it's going to show you everything. It's a different picture, but a really brilliantly, beautifully crafted piece of work.
Well, I knew Chaplin many years later when I worked at Daily Times, and I discussed this movie with him. So
I don't know anything about that. I know that Graham Greene, Lord Graham Greene, who was the executor of the Chandler estate, once I started doing books on tape of Chandler's work, that he sent a telegram to say that he thought it was well done.
Yeah, but didn't Chaplin come around, Charles Chaplin?
Chaplin came around, but I find it difficult to trust most people, especially people with ego and people with vanity. I find it very toxic. I've had to accept my own because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I think that Chaplin came around because I almost was not really profane. The picture, the picture has endured. The picture lasts like an American jazz piece, and people have tried to do it since, and haven't been able to accomplish it. I mean, you look at John Williams and Johnny Mercer's song and the music, and I think how many versions of the same music in it. And then the classic part of which I listened to really closely today in the last scene. So I believe also that a grain of pride is good for the heart, but no more than that. It's blinding. But I'm very gratified, privileged, and really happy to be a part of this work.
But over the years, like Soderbergh was the Black Ink Improvisation. You must have gotten feedback from the artistic community. This movie seems to draw a lot of people.
Most of the people in my shul have never seen it.
But I think many of the people making film and TV today have seen it. I'll tell you, this is a kind of a sad secret, but I was so inspired by this movie that I rented Marlowe's apartment. That was my apartment.
The apartment that I had in the movie?
Yeah, and I took it, and the elevator is still the old thing.
No, it's still there. I mean, I still, until I can't, and I'm looking at it, I'm interested. I have the sequel to this, where it's still now. And I think I told you the name of the material, the source material of Raymond Chandler's is The Curtain. And this was pre-Philip Marlowe. And this is where a 10-year-old is the killer. But now, I mean, I worked with the Chandler estate, who gave me the rights to it for $1. I don't even think I ever gave him the buck. But, you know, there's no money for it, and it's more than interesting, and it's called It's Always Now, and I understand that apartment is still there, and he would still be living in that apartment. He wouldn't have that car anymore. That was my car. And that was my car, actually very pretentious. It was a 1948 Lincoln Continental that was called the Last American Classic. And I saw a picture of John Wayne had the same car in 1941. And now that particular car is at Harrah's Museum in Reno, and they've repainted it a canary yellow, which isn't bad, but that green was great. And it's right next to it, the only time I was there, next to the car that James Dean drove in Rebel Without a Cause. But I mean, I would love to know if Raymond Chandler liked it. I know Alfred Hitchcock liked it. So he told me, but you know, sometimes it's really, you gotta get out. A guy who lives alone like that with his cat, and there were 2 cats, and I had a clicker to get the cat there, and they could do something with the sound. So there were 2 cats in the scene, and they both looked alike. You couldn't tell that there was more than 1 cat. And at the end of It's Always Now, after I know that this 10-year-old is the killer, and that I can't take him away from his mother. I mean, this is the story of a humankind, the mother and his, the child and his mother. So I'm out and I'm walking out. Every cat in the community, in the neighborhood, every cat is following this character. You know? But we'll see.
So would that be man of your age playing Chandler?
Well, no, it would be me. My interest is in what I do. So therefore it would be, I mean, this character would be my age, you know, I mean, and you know, but I would doubt that it's going to be made, but I never give up, and it's a really good idea, you know, it's a really good idea, and the guy would be still me, you know. I wouldn't dye my hair, I wouldn't try to be anything but what I am. It's still me, and it's always now.
And would you do the continuity with the cigarettes?
I don't know whether I smoke anymore. I probably don't smoke anymore, you know.
I'm going to go to the audience here in a second, but you've played some amazing roles, a career that's 5 decades and going.
Do you know what the definition of career is in the Webster's Dictionary? It's defined as emanating from a Spanish word meaning an obstacle course like a racetrack. And that amuses me, and I mean, I've had to not only get out of my own way, I didn't come here to be somebody or to be anybody, and then having succeeded, I mean, I had to do something about a success because I really wanted to get to know, what am I? What do I do? Do I stand for anything? It's not, you know, all I care about is us, you know, and the relationship. So, you know, I hope I have, and I know I'll continue, like I said, I go on and on and on, but I hope I haven't disappointed you in our interview, because I get, as I told you earlier, I get very enthusiastic, and I don't manufacture this.
No disappointment here, but this obstacle course, where you've had many stops and you've been having many different
stop,
characters.
though. Life doesn't stop. Yeah, very
right.
Obstacles. Right?
Well, I guess I'm rambling here. I'm just trying to get to, my question is, of all these characters you played, where's Marlowe in your achievements and, you know, in your own story?
Well, this was my favorite. Right. I mean, now that I don't really have favorites, because like I don't have time to, you know, I mean, I always work to do something on a classic proportion, and not pretentiously, I put everything, all of myself into it, and if I've got good direction and people that can help me stay in tune, that's all I want to do, is to continue to work until I can't do that anymore. And then I believe in education. So, The Long Goodbye,
Well, what makes it your favorite? I mean, because
It
of the
was
time
my
on the
favorite.
project, or looking back at it?
no, I
what's
don't
on
look
the screen?
back. I mean, it was a real movie to me. It was as though it was the first movie that I had really ever made. And to play a character that had had a history like this, and a history that I had watched and I'd observed, and then also to have this great American maestro, Robert Altman, take me through it and let me go through it. So it's right up there. I can't think of very many other things that have given me the opportunity to bring my life into something like this.
And didn't you just make a movie with Altman right after this one? Or closely?
Well, this was around
California
72, 73. I mean, the next movie that Bob did with me was California Split. And that too, because actually, Steve McQueen was supposed to do the part that I played. And that picture, California Split, was semi-autobiographical, because in real life, I was the character that George Segal played, and I play the writer who lived it with me, who's in the picture. And then Bob put me, after I did the last picture that Donald Sutherland and I have done up to now, I was traveling with spies, and Bob said, come to Nashville and you can be in the picture. And so I'm Elliott Gould in Nashville. And but the long...
How difficult was that?
What's that?
How difficult was that?
Well, I remember the shirt that I wore, because I had gotten 2 shirts that time. I liked this shirt. It was my shirt. I got one for me and one that I thought was going to be for Donald. Maybe I gave it to him, but, it was never difficult working with Robert Altman.
Does anyone have questions? Yep.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you discussed already, you gave examples of Altman is known for his dialogue, okay? He's really known for it. And did you give any other examples of any improvisation which wasn't in the script?
In this picture or in
in this particular, focusing on this picture here.
Well, I know the scene after he's hit by the car. And again, one of the few things that Bob, and I didn't know that he had created the scene where I'd have to run through Westwood late at night. And a lot of this has been about conditioning, and about being vulnerable, and about you're not seeing how vulnerable this is, and how I'm not really a runner. I mean, the loneliness of the long-distance runner is very thematic to me, but I don't want to spin out too far. But when after the guy's hit by the car, and Bob and I discussed if he still had the butt in his mouth. And Bob said, yeah. I said, is it lit? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. And then the next thing you see is this mummified person. And I think you think for a moment that could be Marlowe. It could be Marlowe.
Yeah, I thought that at first might have been him.
Well, yeah, that's good. That's what I would want you to think. But then, because you see, there's no eyes, there's nothing to breathe there. And we went to a real hospital in a room, and I thought it's so irresponsible to come into a place, because I heard like a death rattle in a room or two down the hall. And I thought we could do this in this room, make it look like it's a hospital. And so I was aware of that. And then we had to we had to establish this 4-note harmonica, which hadn't been in the script. And then when I'm sort of talking to myself and getting myself sort of conscious and aware, and gotta get out of here, I think he says, and then he's going to give me the 4-note harmonica, and I can't take it because I'm tone deaf, and I'm improvising with the mummy. And then there was something that I didn't hear today, but I used in it because after, when I said, and I'll always love him for more than just this line, when I said, I've seen all your pictures too, we started out with that, which is so funny, but a good laugh, you know, which is, that's so funny. Part of this, Hooray for Hollywood, I've seen all your pictures too, and he let it be in the movie, but then I also said after I took the 4-note harmonica, and after I'm leaving, I had said, and I didn't see it in this print, tell the guy next door that it don't hurt to die. And that's in some prints. And that was, you know, and now Bob could cut anything I did, because I mean, when you say about order, I mean, things have to be lit, you know, and so things have to be shot a certain way. We're not near a conclusion, are we?
No.
Okay.
We have a lot more.
I went to a film festival in Lake Townsend, Washington State, and looked at The Touch. I'm not selling Ingmar Bergman here, or The Touch, but seeing it with an American audience that was interested. And then I was asked to speak with 11th and 12th graders. And because I understand us. Difficult sometimes to understand me, but that's because there's so much going on. I'm working at it. And there was a poster with a picture of Albert Einstein and a quotation that I'd never heard, never seen the picture, never heard it. And the quotation is, "Where the world ceases to be the scene of our personal hopes and wishes, where we face it as free beings, admiring, asking, and observing, there we enter the realm of art and science." And I so admired it, they took it down and gave it to me. I mounted it and I live with it.
Yeah.
The question I've always wanted to ask you, as a great respecter of Chandler and of Altman and of Philip Marlowe, did you have any qualm about Marlowe shooting Terry Lennox?
No. And you asked me about if I had any kind of thought about playing the part. No. I didn't have a thought about it. I mean, I was no inhibition, and yet, you know, I'm aware. But Altman gave me. He let me pick my wardrobe. He let me pick the tie, and he let me say it's okay with me, which meant to me is I don't know what's going on here, you know. But don't tread on me. It's okay with me. Whatever you think. You know, that's okay with me, you know, until, like you say, because I remember when I showed this to Donald, to Sutherland, he said, oh, it's about morality. I mean, it's an American jazz piece. So, no, great respect, but if my mother would say to me, you're very impressionable. And then I was able to ask her toward the end, you've always said that to me, but that you mean I'm easily influenced? And she said, yeah. I said, oh, I could deal with that. Do you mean then, where do you think I got that from? And she said, not from me. She said, I'm much too sad. But no, this was an opportunity, and you know, I'm very grateful for it.
Can you say you mentioned the director, you don't want to say who it was?
No, I don't, that doesn't matter. I think maybe that guy back there was the guy. To me, we're all the same.
Thanks. I only have one question, but I have a statement that I just really appreciated the spontaneity and the creativity of it. I kind of had an image of Mel Brooks as sort of like blazing saddles around the campfire when the guys started taking off their clothes in that scene. And I just I thought the randomness was really amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, I was in Altman's office, and Mark Rydell had written a scene where they wanted to crucify. He had an idea to crucify Marlowe. Mark Rydell's the guy who played Marty Augustine. And I read it, I read it, and Vicious, very talented actor and director. He's just turned, I think, 83 or 85. But I said, and that they would make me take my clothes off, and I said, no, I wouldn't do that. I'm not taking my clothes off. If I had to take my clothes off, I would, because I can move people, get you to take off your clothes. And if you take off your clothes, and then I have to take, and you persist, thank God they got the money back, because otherwise, otherwise my mouth has to go further.
Just go to the question.
That's great. But this is very random. You mentioned two things that had come up. You mentioned it, Elliot, one about the cigarettes, and I said he has to be matching because he's smoking that thing constantly, always, every strike and match. But the question I have is, where is that apartment? Is that in Echo Park?
Well, he knows that he used to live there.
No, it's called the Hightower Apartments. It's on the back side of the Hollywood Bowl. And there's paths up there that you can take down to the Hollywood Bowl. That was one of the cool things. But part of what I was saying about that was, on occasion, people from the movie and TV business would come by and knock on the door, almost like in paying homage to the movie. So that's what I was trying to get the point at, that you said everyone in your shul has not seen the movie, but I think a lot of people in this community have seen it. I had a movie made. One of my books came out last year.
What was it called?
The Lincoln Lawyer, and in that movie is a shot of the character, the Lincoln Lawyer, going down a tree-lined path.
McConaughey, right?
Yeah, and
I heard that's pretty good.
it is pretty good. But there's a direct tip of the hat to the last scene of that movie.
Oh, great.
Talk about improvisation. I just want to ask you, what about the last line? I even lost my cat. Was that in the script, or you just throw that out there
I
as
would
you're
think
killing
that's
a
in the
guy?
script. I would think that's in the script. I don't think, that was so, whereas once he pulls the trigger, so this was just before he pulls the trigger, that was almost a different picture, almost a different character, getting to,
Yeah, as soon as he comes around the wall, you can see it's a different character.
yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say, Elliot, that you seem to be a very confident man. Was there anything that ever intimidated you at any time, whether it's a movie role or a movie?
Besides my mother, you mean?
Besides your mom.
No, intimidation, that would, I could have a master's class on being insecure, And I also know that for me, it's important to be able to, and how I was able to get underneath the roots of my insecurity was to accept my limitations. I didn't know limitations. I had no limitations, and once I was given freedom, or took freedom, for instance, in MASH, there was a scene where Bob gave me a line, and we're all playing poker, and I played poker. I'm not a very good poker player after all this time, because I cannot represent something I don't have. And I'm glad it's true. So I won't play poker with you, And so, but I'm steady. And so the scene was we're playing poker, and the guy from the other camp comes and with his aide, and the aide has sunglasses with mirrors on the outside. And Bob said, when you see him, turn and look at him and say, there's two ways to die in this war. You gotta go out to the front and fight, or stand behind me with those glasses when I'm playing poker. And some of the guys from the improvisational groups that Bob would hire to be in his pictures didn't really play poker, and there was energy, and I have this energy, because Bob let me choose Trapper John. He let me cast myself in that. And so he said to me, around that scene, he said, I can't keep my eyes off of you, it's very distracting. I said, don't look at me then. I'm always in character. So look at me in the context of what you're shooting, and then see what I'm doing. Don't let this energy distract you, because all I am is working in concert with everyone else, and this is an energy that I hope that you've employed for your picture. So yeah, I'm no different than any one of us, and like I said about sharing and being honest, people sometimes have said to me, and I shared this with Shaquille O'Neal, I can't share clothes with Shaquille O'Neal. And I said, people sometimes say to me, are you serious? And I can say, I don't have to be so serious any longer. I know I'm honest.
I think we have time for one more. Somebody was yelling over here. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I thought that the scene in the police station that you mentioned with the ink, it was such a perfect improvisation because it just so showed your contempt for the police and it compounded
No, it's
that
off
feeling.
of the thing. It's not contempt. That's something I have to work. Not contempt. I mean, just being so stifled, being so pressured. Sometimes it looks that way, and that's why that some of them think that I'm a wise guy or something. No, I would talk with you about that. It's not. It's
No,
not
well,
contempt.
that goes to what you said before, was that.
Well, we're dealing with this
Marlowe is-
killing in Florida,
Marlowe
right?
is-
This kid,
Marlowe is the law
profiling,
and
we're talking
order.
about everything here.
So I want to ask, okay, you said Marlowe is for law and order and he's the last upholder of law and order. So,
He's not the last.
well, not the last, but in this movie, he's the only moral guy. So,
The guy at the piano is pretty good. I liked him. Riley.
okay, but you're sparring with
Jack
the
Riley,
police,
he's
you're not
great.
telling them what they want to know. And in the scene before that, there is no line in this movie that's a throwaway. The scene where the guy pushes you into the other cop in your apartment and he says, oh, if you broke my partial.
Well, he's
Yeah,
making
yeah.
fun. Altman is making fun. That
Well,
wasn't in the
he's
script.
making fun of these
Well,
bureaucratic
that
police.
the authorities, I always myself I had a problem with authority.
Exactly.
But then to understand what authority is, and in relation to limitations, where there has to be administrative organization, and in terms of law and order, and the more I live, the more I experience, the more I know I don't know, and that we have to be able to gauge things and have someone to listen to. There's a guy in the back.
He'll be our last question.
Just one last thing, did you want to share with the audience about the Robert Altman cameo in the movie Long Goodbye? A lot of people probably don't know Altman did make an honorary.
Well, I mean, after Marlowe is hit by the car, and then you have a shot, a very fast shot of an ambulance, and then next time you look at it, are you aware that in the riding shotgun, in the front seat of the ambulance, and he's directing because he's on a walkie-talkie too, is Robert Altman. You can see him direct in the picture.
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh, great. And you
How
see
come
him
Arnold
with his-
Schwarzenegger didn't get a, he's
He
uncredited?
didn't have a billing?
No?
No? I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe when he spoke German back then.
No. Anyway, thanks.
Well, I want to thank Robert Graves and the library for celebrating Robert. And I encourage you to thank Elliott Gould.